Hello, I'm Kyoko Kitazawa. I'd like to talk about overdiagnosis from the standpoint of the general public. I'd like to introduce myself and talk about how I came to participate in this symposium. I have worked as a reporter for magazines for doctors and pharmacists, and through my work, I have been interested in various issues on healthcare. Nearly 10 years ago, I came across a book titled Overdiagnosed by Dr. Gilbert H. Welch et al., and I was able to publish a Japanese translation of this book in 2014. Later, in 2019, I attended a conference on overdiagnosis held at the University of Sydney, where I was able to meet Dr. Stephen Wallacing, one of the authors of the original book. At that time, I also met Dr. Midorikawa and Dr. Otsuru at the conference and learned that they were interested in and working on the overdiagnosis of thyroid cancer in Fukushima Prefecture. In general, it takes a surprising amount of courage for the average citizen to see a doctor. This figure shows that there are many stages before the average citizen can see a doctor. This situation is known as a clinical iceberg. The bottom of the figure shows the stage where there are no health problems. Next is the stage where people do not notice any abnormalities. And then the stage where people do feel abnormalities but do not take any action. The next stage is lay care. In other words, the stage in which people take care of themselves by massaging or taking over-the-counter medicines. And if there is still no improvement, they finally realize that it would be better to visit a medical institution. However, screening tests skip these steps and directly send us from the stage where nothing is wrong to the stage where we think we should go to see a doctor. This figure is a schematic of a screening test which appeared in the book Overdiagnosed that analyzes why we are willing to take screening tests over and over again. The point of this figure is that the public has positive feelings about screening tests, no matter what the results are. The red circle in the middle of the figure shows screening tests. If the result of the test is normal on the left, it means that there is no abnormality, which is reassuring and gives you a good impression of the test. The false alarm on the lower right indicates that you did not have a disease, even though the test result was once positive. If your test is positive, you will feel more anxious, but if you finally find out that you do not have a disease, you will be even happier, and you will still have a good impression of the test. To the right is the case where this disease is finally determined. In this case, it is possible that the patient is saved because the screening test detected and diagnosed the disease early, or that the result is the same whether the patient is diagnosed early or later. However, the diagnosed patient cannot know which. Therefore, in either case, the patient will still have a good impression of the test, saying, "The screening test helped me to find out early." The last one on the right is overdiagnosis. That is, when a disease is detected, but it does does not affect one's life expectancy. However, in the case of overdiagnosis of cancer, for example, the patient will most likely receive treatment. However, in fact, this is needless. What makes the problem of overdiagnosis difficult to understand for us is that the prognosis for overdiagnosis is generally good. So we might think, I survived because I did the screening test and found it early. The truth is that I could have lived just as long without the test, but I cannot start my life again without it. In fact, some cancers have been found to be overdiagnosed in population-based studies. This is one of the most famous examples of overdiagnosis of thyroid cancer in Korea. When the thyroid screening test was introduced, the incidence of thyroid cancer increased, but the mortality rate did not change. It can be read as an increase in overdiagnosis of cancer, not an actual increase in cancer. However, again, even if we know that there is overdiagnosis in the population, it is impossible for each individual patient to know whether he or she has been overdiagnosed. So then, is overdiagnosis an unavoidable problem? I do not think so. This is a result of asking about 500 members of the general public in Australia about overdiagnosis. Nearly 60% had heard of overdiagnosis before, but only about 10% had ever had a doctor explain overdiagnosis to them. And most of them thought that the risk of overdiagnosis should be explained to them when they underwent screening tests. Another thing that I think is important is to visualize the degree of risk. The visualization can help you decide whether you want to take the test or not. This diagram is called a fact box, provided by an insurer in Germany that visualizes the screening test for ovarian cancer. Choosing wisely, an international campaign to encourage high-value care, asked the public to ask 5 questions to your doctor, such as, do I really need this test? Or, what will happen if I do not do anything? These are basic and important questions. By asking these questions to doctors, we hope to create a dialogue between patients and doctors and promote shared decision-making. In summary, screening tests for healthy people can lead to overdiagnosis. If you are alive after a screening test, you tend to think that you are alive because of the test. The fact that health professionals who perform the test are thanked by patients, while those who do not are not, is another factor that encourages more testing. It is rare for patients to raise the issue of overdiagnosis, but they actually want to know about it. I hope that health professionals will exercise their professionalism to conduct more research on overdiagnosis and return the result to the general public. That's all. Thank you very much for your kind attention.